to each place. And by the time I get a message is when I start it. Otherwise, we won't get the first part of the recording, or people in the various avenues, the Twitter, the YouTube, the Facebook, the blog, the Patreon, it'll all push to them, but it'll push to them at different times, like within a couple of minutes. So you'll know when I start. Okay, there we go. Welcome to Conversations with Tad. This is the type of broadcast where you come to see somebody being discipled. I'm Michael Patton, and I have been talking to Tad for a long time. He's one of my very best friends. I hope you've been able to keep up with this. This is something that is so exciting for me because for years and years and years, I have tried to get Tad to become a Christian. I have had him on my prayer list. I've done everything I could to get him because I love Tad, but not only because I love him, but because I just feel like the Lord can use him. And I know the Lord can use anybody, but there's certain people out there that you think if God would just get a hold of him, and Tad has always been that person for me. And I'm so happy because God has gotten a hold of Tad. And so we are having these conversations. We're usually having them on the phone, but we have transferred and said, hey, this is fun stuff. Not only can you learn, not only can you be discipled with Tad, but you can learn as a Christian what type of questions people are asking and maybe how to answer them as I attempt to answer them. Tad is here today, and I've also got Kelly. You remember Kelly from a couple of times ago. We've had him on, and you know what? He's doing the same thing. So me and Tad, just a picture of me, Tad, and Kelly sitting around a table, and you guys being a fly on the wall, and Tad trying to get us to answer some questions about Christianity, as he has not only come to Christ and he loves Christ, he's just trying to understand as much as he can. So I'm bringing them in right now. Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey Michael.
Hey Tad.
How you doing, Michael?
Hey Kelly. I'm doing very good. Guys, folks, Tad, as you can see, is frozen. We cannot, for the life of us, get him to. And that's the star of the show. His good looks are what brings all the girls in. So we had to get a good picture, and that's a great picture of him.
Yeah,
but he's really here, and he really looks like that right now.
Yeah, it's exactly. Yeah, that's live. So Kelly didn't have a chance to watch your last podcast, so I'll just do this real briefly. But it was amazing because I think you helped a lot of people with that, because I think a lot of people struggle with either being overweight, which you're so consumed with right now, or even being underweight. No one's perfect, and everybody just views themselves as how they think other people are looking at them. But Michael, I think you're an amazing looking guy. I've been around you, and I get where maybe your mind space is because of you don't look the same, but man, nobody does. You know what I mean? I'm pulling for you. I think everybody is, and you're doing everything right. So I just wanted to chime in on that. And Kelly, he just had a whole podcast about how he is kind of isolating because of his what he considers a weight problem. And he won't do things with his family. He's kind of just hiding out. And so thank God for the Bible, because that's what he's reading a lot of and studying and doing a lot of podcasts. But that's where that was, Kelly, just so you know.
I got you.
Kelly, yeah, I did do a podcast, or I did a blog. I did 2 blogs actually on this. One blog I did, and I just kind of, one of the things I do, Kelly, and we can talk about this if you guys want to, but one of the things I do is since I at least I used to have a very significant following, and I still have a big following, but there's just a lot of people out there, and one of the things that I do periodically, and I usually say about 5% of the time is I'll talk about where I'm at spiritually, and it's usually the things that I'm struggling with. And so I bring those out because I don't want to ever have anything that comes out into the open that is, hidden behind here. I love it whenever people speak about their issues and the real person comes out, because I just think that's that's necessary for true fellowship.
No, I agree. I think it's being real and people, and it's relatable. And we've had, each of us have had our different issues that we all know about, and I think we're more and more comfortable, sharing those and seeking prayer and also just supporting each
Yeah.
other through those things.
You know, but the thing
So-
is, here's the deal, Kelly and Tad. This is important for you to understand as well. The church is not perfect. There's a lot of people that'll support me at this point. There's a lot of people that are like, "Hey, Michael, we understand." But also, it's not perfect. There's always going to be the issues. There's always going to be those types of people. And there are these types of people. That's why I wrote the second blog, about how I lost support on Patreon because of my last blog. And a lot of people were very upset. I understand it. I do understand this, that I haven't been going to church because of this. My issue is basically I have no clothes that fit, and I'm just isolated in that way, and people really, really didn't like it. I understand that they didn't like it, but some of them left, and said, "Hey, I can't be your Patreon. I can't support you anymore." And so, Tad, there are going to be people like that, and you're going to see hypocrisy. You're going to see people that have their own problems, but they don't reveal them. You're going to see people who try to change you and make you everything that they say you're supposed to be, without any understanding, without any compassion, without any love. That is going to be present within the church no matter what. You're going to find those, and the problem is, Dad, those people will probably be the loudest.
Yeah, and that's why on the last one, and then we'll get to a couple of questions I have, which are probably, it's completely off track, but when I said I think it's best, and we've been trained wrong, by just our upbringing, to go to the church first and God second. And I think if we went to God first and then found a church of like minds, I don't think people would be as judgmental. And it's interesting that you would lose followers because you're going through a thing right now. I mean, those people, those aren't the right people anyway. And money's money. I understand, but at the same time, those aren't who you want following you, man. That's not your mission, and that's not where you've been going, and that's not how you've led so many people to God. I mean,
it's always been worth the risk. In 2010, whenever I went through my doubt, and that was public. I went through my depression afterwards. That was public. Went through my drug abuse, doubt, depression, drug abuse, all the D's within the last 10 years. But I went through the drug abuse. That was public. And I did lose people on all of these places. But I also gained other people. And I think the gaining of it, has to do with me being upfront with it. There was never any hiding in this stuff, because I can't hide stuff. Once I start hiding, I will hide everything, and I will manipulate people's thoughts of me the way that I want it to be. And then I won't be able to change and become better. And so I've got to get my problems out front very quickly. So
I want to say I'm very proud of you for coming up, or for just being up front with everyone and what's been going on with you. That took balls, man. And I'm just proud of you. I'm proud that I've got a friend like you, man. And Kelly,
Dad, the funny thing is, Dad, you know me better than anybody else. I mean, there are things that's not proper to say out loud, and there's etiquette. There's always etiquette, and I'm not saying what you know about me. Some of the things that we talk about, some of the things that we've done, those things aren't proper to talk about. Sometimes, it's just got to be the right context, and you know me better than anybody else, and that's the thing. One of the things I like so much is that you know me completely, but you know me probably better than any friend I know. And you still say that stuff. So that's encouraging.
I'm just proud of you, man. And I'm proud of Kelly. I mean, Kelly is, I'm so proud that Kelly is my friend, and what he has done, just as far as the Lord, and just seeing, here's what Kelly has done for me. And then we'll get to these questions, because I want to talk about the Old Testament, and I want to talk about what's more important, the old or new. But I want to talk about Kelly real quick. He has been so consistent with his beliefs, and I've seen him not ever kind of veer off the path. Even when I was, a couple of years ago, just really kind of lost, he would always talk about God. He'd pray for me. He's just been so like consistent. And to me, that's a leader, clearly. But at the same time, it's like, man, this is who I want to be like. I mean, he's somebody that I want to grow up to be like Kelly, and I mean that.
Thanks, man.
but he's too small right now on my phone. I can just see Michael's big head, and then Kelly. Just get me out of it so I can see you good.
There's oh wait, I can change it a little bit. Let's see here. You want me to do this?
Yeah.
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 Perfect.
Okay. Good.
Okay. Yeah.
Ted-
I can see Kelly's smiling face.
Ted,
But-
thank
so
you. Thank you for that. Obviously, Michael and I are really proud of you. And this podcast is really about your journey. It's fun to be a part of it, you know, as you've been a part of mine and you've been a part of Michael's. And it's a privilege for me to kind of be here with you all. I've been praying for this podcast from you and Michael, and watching them, listening to them. So it's a blessing. And yet I was talking, Michael, yesterday to someone, I'm trying to remember about your walk with God, and how in Scripture Jesus says that you'll be persecuted for your faith. So it doesn't say that it's going to be an easy walk. He says,
Yeah.
you'll be, I think, strangers in a strange land, something to that effect. And that's, we have to remind ourselves of that the journey is never done. It's relationship, but Satan's going to come after those.
Paul even said he wasn't that far on the journey, or he hadn't made it. He hadn't attained perfection.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good.
Exactly.
Well, thanks, Kelly. All right, Tad, did you leave us?
I just got some elementary questions once again.
Okay.
But like, who wrote the Old Testament?
Who wrote the Old Testament? Okay, well, let's think of it this way, Tad. Let's kind of think of it not in the way that we have developed it within the Christian faith, but let's go all the way back and try to understand what's going on here. Huh?
It's that's a loaded question. I mean, I think Michael could say that is there are debates about it. It's it is God inspired, God breathed, but there are certain debates about the actual author or authors versus the New Testament. But Michael can shed more light on that. It's a good question. It's a really good question.
Oh yeah, I mean, gosh, not only the New Testament too. There's debates about. I mean, it's what we're dealing with is a grouping of religious code and religious history. So just think of Moses coming down from the mountain, and he has the 10 Commandments, right? How did that make it into the Bible? Who decided for that to become part of the Bible? We call it the canon of Scripture. Whenever you're talking about it, the canon, the rule, the canon of Scripture is basically the books that belong in the Bible. Whenever Moses came down from the mountain, how did they get that to be inspired? What did they have a committee afterwards? Did they say, "Hey, let's get together and figure out whether this can belong in the Bible"? No, not at all. It was just automatically. It was an organic thing. Whenever people were writing religious texts in the Jewish community of the day, it just became part of the religious text that they used. Now, by the time of Jesus' time, you had probably let's see here. You had at least 30 different or 25 different authors of the Old Testament. So the Old Testament is written by a variety of people, which is one of the amazing things about it, Tad. You need to know that, because here we have a book that's written over 1,500 years. You have over 40 total different authors. You have 3 different continents. You have 3 different languages, Greek, Hebrew, and Aramaic, a little bit of Aramaic, but 3 different languages, different cultures, different times. Yet you read through it and you see this one theme, and you say there is no way that all of these people could just pull these books together from different authors, different times, different places, and have this theme that is building and building throughout the Old Testament about this guy that's coming, this Christ, this Messiah who is coming, and he's going to be the one who fulfills the very third chapter of Genesis. Only 3 chapters into the Bible, God said, there shall be your seed who comes and crushes the serpent's head, although you will bruise his heel. And people were waiting for, what did that mean? They didn't know. But by the time that Christ came, here we have Christ looking back on this religious text that they called the law and the prophets, the law, the prophets, and the writings. That's the threefold division that they would have at the time of Christ. But they were already all accepted, and they were written by many different people, and Christ believed. The reason why I believe the Old Testament is because Christ did. And whenever he talks about it authoritatively. So therefore, that settles it for me. As long as Christ did it, it has a domino effect, and it is authoritative. What do you think of that?
Which would you can? Well, I mean, I asked the question, so I get a long answer, but it was a. What do you think about that, Kelly?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think there are two different themes, as Michael was talking about. The Old Testament to me was relatable because there were obviously Israel is the chosen people, right, of God, and the Old Testament lays out the biblical law, but also there are a number of different who fail in the Old Testament, and there's still redemption, and that's relatable, I think, to us in this day and time, at least to me personally. Whereas in the New Testament, it's about the birth, the life, and the death and the resurrection of Jesus Christ, and he is coming to fulfill the prophecies that are laid out in the Old Testament. So they obviously go hand in hand, but as Michael said, there's just the details of them are really vastly different. But would
you think that the Old Testament or the New Testament is more important? I mean, you're going to say both, but which one?
Yeah, well, to me, I mean, Michael can speak to it, but you can't have one without the other, really, because as he said,
that's fair.
Jesus references the Old Testament, and I think 2 Timothy, he speaks about the scriptures, so the Old Testament are the scriptures as is the New Testament. So it's all, if you will, God breathed, but it sort of just and the different timing, but the Old Testament speaks about the coming Messiah, right? And and then Jesus references the scripture of the Old Testament in his saying. So, Michael, would you want to jump in on that?
Yeah, no, I agree as well. I mean, Tad, it's going to depend. You say which one is more important. It'd be like, for what? What do you mean more important?
Yeah.
I mean, if you're talking about for the entirety of the Christian faith, yeah, exactly what he said. I mean, you've got to have both, or you don't have the end of the story if you don't have the beginning of the story. But if you're talking about, say, you called me and said, "Hey, what should I read?" I would say the most important is not just the New Testament, but the Gospels. Just like to read Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John.
No, I can't get through Matthew. I'm sorry, man. I've been trying and trying.
Well, keep on trying, or switch over to Mark. Or you might like John better. John has more. His writing style is more emotive. He has more emotion. He also works from the Matthew, Mark, and Luke work from a inductive, from the bottom up. He works from the top down. In other words, they don't tell who Christ is in Matthew, Mark, and Luke until the end. It kind of builds and builds and builds. It's called the messianic secret. John, on the other hand, just comes right out. In the beginning was the Word, and he was God, So he doesn't play any games. So I would just say those, if you're talking about what would I give to somebody who came up to me and said, I don't know anything about Christianity, I would say, read Mark. I mean, that's what Mark wrote it for. He wrote it to
Mark or John. I think he said John.
Well, either one. I mean, probably John, Mark, because
John 3:16, we all know. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But
they both have the entirety of the story. Matthew, Mark, and Luke are actually 92 or 88% the same. I think it is 88%. Yeah. John is 92% different. So you'll read those three, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and you'll go, didn't I just read this? Didn't I just read this story?
Okay.
And yeah, you did. It's just a little bit different from a different perspective. But whenever you come to John, it's mostly new stories.
Okay. Well, that's all right. Well, I'm glad that popped up.
Good.
So, and then I was going to, because, I got a little atheist friend of mine that we talked a lot about some of his questions.
Which everybody, Tad used to be an atheist. Let me just tell everybody that. Tad used to be an atheist. Yeah. Go ahead, Tad.
Yeah. That's probably a nicer way to say that. But
Tad used to be a nice atheist.
I mean, I always... Okay, there we go. Yeah, I was the nicest atheist you've ever met in your life.
You were nice. You are nice. Okay.
Yeah, but I wouldn't. I mean, atheist is such a strong word.
All right, agnostic. That might be better.
Anyway,
right?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Perfect. But what I asked you this earlier, but what was the question, Michael? I can't remember. I can't check it out now. It was about all the killing of women and children that God did, that atheists believe, or something like that.
All right, let me ask you this: are you talking about the problem of the Old Testament with regard to slavery, seeming to accept slavery, the way that women were treated, and also there's another thing that's related but further away, and that the genocide that God commanded for Israel to have on the Canaanites?
Ooh,
are those it?
The Canaanites.
The Canaanites?
Well, I don't know which one, dude. You tell me.
No. I mean, here's what I would say. I'd say the Canaanite that issue with the genocide of the Canaanites is probably the second biggest issue in apologetics today. Meaning that at all the conferences, apologetics conferences, defending the faith conferences, that's what apologetics means. I know I tell you that every time, but I just want to make sure. One of these days you're just going to go, I know what apologetics means, but until then, I'm going to keep on saying that.
Yeah, keep saying.
Yeah. But it would be the second biggest issue. The biggest issue is the problem of evil in general. That's what people are asking today. But the second biggest issue is the genocide of the Canaanites. And that's not necessarily, I mean, it's not an easy thing to deal with. I mean, there's a few ways I could go about it. And I could start off by saying, hey, listen, if he's God and he tells them to destroy all of these people, men, women, and children, that's another big problem. Animals too. So there's a few texts that just says wipe them all out completely. Don't let anything that breathes. I'm going to go too long. I don't want to go too long, so I'm just going to go quick.
All right.
I get into
you get
it.
all excited.
Yeah.
I love that you guys can't see me because you don't know if I'm flipping you off or not right now.
Just text me if you are.
No, I'm not. But you don't know.
So, you've got one side that would just basically say this: it's God. Even though we can't do that, he knows what's going on better than anybody. Therefore, he can make decisions such as that complete genocide because he knows the greater good that it's going to bring about, which we don't. And there are some things, the secret things, that belong to the Lord, right? That's kind of one position. Another position, which is that of Paul Copan, the most popular one in the evangelical church today, the guy who wrote Is God a Moral Monster? Very good book. I mean, very, very, it's people all over are reading this book. But he says that is God a moral monster?
Wow. Okay.
So that's all he's dealing with is the genocide of the Canaanites. And his argument is that it is not euphemistic, but it was a saying of the day that whenever they had said, don't let anything breathe, that everybody knew that just meant destroy them. But that didn't mean actually not let anybody breathe. And he brings in a lot of evidence, about that, and shows how other nations and the Bible, there's still Canaanites left afterwards. They're living among the Israelites. So therefore, it could not have meant this. I don't think he's right because there's certain passages that say you didn't kill every one of them, and to Saul, and he gets in big trouble for that. But I don't think that's right, but that's another way. My view is the most weird view, and I'm just going to say it real quick, try to get it in one sentence, and you can do with it whatever you want, and listeners are going to do with it whatever they want, but there's a lot more to it, and I can't get into that today. But I do believe that the Nephilim had corrupted all of the Canaanites, and their bloodline was corrupted, even down to the animals. And I do have evidence for this, that from other cultures and from other religious texts, such as the Book of Enoch. But I think that God was doing this. I think I know the reason, and I think it was because there was a corrupted bloodline within the human race, and he wanted to get rid of it completely. Everything that breathed had to go, and it didn't get rid of it in the flood because some angels still did what they did before. So what are you thinking? I don't know what you're doing. You're probably just all I can give you, Tad, at this point.
I love that you can't see me. I love you can't see me. I love it.
I've got to give you guys the three options because I cannot say this is it. There's too many good people that believe in all three, and none of us are perfect, and we do the best we can to answer hard questions like that, but they are very answerable. It's just which position. I take number 3. I do believe there was a bloodline issue.
I like that one too, and because you said it, that means I believe it. So,
when Tad, you were asking, I believe, with me about the Battle of Jericho. So about that
was my next
about
question.
that. The first,
tell me, what do you think about
battle of Israel and the Canaanites? But it's a classic story with obviously the trumpets and walking around the walls and then being able to pillage. But that's kind of that's the start of it for sure.
One of the things, Tad, talking about women and slavery, which is all related. Okay, let's just say all this stuff is related, how God works with people.
So is Jericho part of this?
Yeah, it's part of the conquest.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Tad?
Yeah, you guys were just kind of freezing out. Yeah,
okay.
Hello.
Okay, good. I got you.
Okay,
yeah, all of it.
So
the Jericho is
part of this other.
Yeah, Jericho is part of the conquest, them taking over all of the land of Canaan and eventually wiping out all the Canaanites and the Amorites and all. How do
you picture that looking? How do you, like, in your mind, in your mind's eye? What do you imagine? Because I know how you. I like for you to paint a picture for me real quick, because this is blowing my mind, honestly.
Now, which part is blowing your mind? What do you mean? Hello?
Well,
Tad?
when Kelly just said with the horns and all that stuff, I don't know anything about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you asking me how do I picture it?
So Kelly just said,
well,
I'm asking Kelly, and I also want to ask you.
Okay.
It has, I mean, I'm not a historian, of course, but it does, I mean, Canaan significance, and, from what I remember, is thought to be one of the earliest civilizations. And so as Michael mentioned, that's just sort of having the Israelites and being at one with God, and then him commanding them of how to defeat Canaan with their walls and going around 7 times or
I just put Kelly on the worst spot ever. I should have.
So, I mean, it's a visual thing you can think about, which is hard to understand, but it's,
Kelly,
it's
whenever I think about it, I see I don't know what position you hold to, but remember how tall the walls were. I mean, they were massive walls.
Yeah.
And also before they went to it, remember what all the guys said that way they looked like in the sight of those guys? Remember they said, we look like grasshoppers in their sight.
Yeah.
And so they basically said they were giant. So honestly, Tad, I picture it within what I was talking about earlier. This is going to sound weird. You don't have to hold to this. There's nothing bad about not holding to this. I mean, most people don't. I mean, but there's a lot of good people that do too. But I think they were the walls were giant, the people were giants,
Mhm.
and you know, it was very much like you see in a lot of fables. You know, all these people that came, all the cultures, all the civilizations everywhere have these giants, and they all came from somewhere. And so I picture it within the context of what I was talking about earlier. They were going literally to wipe out giants.
Mhm. Mhm.
What do you think about that, Kelly?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Huh.
That they without God possible.
Yeah.
So he he already determined the end of that battle before it started. So and they were faithful. They did what
Wow.
he commanded them to do, and they were victorious. So
Tad, it's all, you know, the Old Testament is filled with these stories of God intervening and doing things through the nation of Israel and making a big historic footprint. You've heard me talk about this before. And the thing that's the craziest about this, Tad, the craziest thing about all these stories in the Old Testament to me, like Kelly said, is that you'll read them and you'll see what you'll just you know, what is it, palm to face, what's it called whenever you do the palm like that, you know, you type it out. Oh well. But you just think, how dumb are they? You know, I mean, I cannot believe they still don't believe, or they're still not following, or they're still not obeying, or they're still going to worship other gods. But one of the things that I'm sure Kelly gets from this because of what he said, but I get from it as well, is a lot of comfort, because we are so dumb and we do such dumb things, even though we know what's right. But God is still pursuing us. He is on a relentless pursuit for your love, because he loves you so much, and he does not give up on the nation of Israel, and he does not give up on us ever. And so it's really comforting me to see how dumb people are, because we're really dumb.
and that was what I was talking about in the Old Testament. It is we relate to the individuals that went against God or pursued their own, you know, personal choices. You know, I mean, there's just so many stories, and so that's in relating to them, and that His mercy and love for us, despite our failings. So that's what I was trying to share. But the Old Testament, without a doubt, obviously is heavy. It's a lot to process and understand as a lay person, unless you've had the training, and it's still difficult at that. So, but that the relatability of the individuals and God's mercy over them and Israel, despite, you know, if you will, with him so many times, or you know, Samson or Moses or Noah. I mean, you can go
Isn't
on.
Samson the greatest guy? I mean,
Yeah.
it's just how in the world did he make it into the Hebrews Hall of Faith?
Yeah.
Tad, there's a deal called the Hall of Faith, Hebrews chapter 11 in the New Testament. But by the way, Hebrews is the one book we really don't know who wrote in the New Testament. We know all the others, or we're pretty sure about all the others.
Let's
But
just blame it on. Let's just say Paul did it and move on.
that's what they did. That's exactly what they did in the early church.
Is it really?
Yeah, I
mean,
swear.
Paul wrote everything, man.
I swear. But there's one passage in Hebrews 11 that there's this big hall of faith, these examples, these towering examples of great people to follow, and Samson makes it in. If you read the book of Judges and you see Samson, you're like, how in the world did this guy ever make it in to the hall of faith? And if he can make it in, then we all have a chance,
Right.
because he was not a good guy. I mean, he's selfish and conceited and just
Arrogant.
a temper like crazy. I mean, what did he do? He did one good thing at the very end, maybe, you know, it's like,
Yeah. And he came, but he
did one good thing.
But he called on God. He called on God
did.
to do it. He was blinded. He didn't have his strength anymore. And
the funny thing is, what was it about? It was about revenge.
Yeah.
So he
Yeah.
called on God to fulfill his revenge, but he made it in.
And yeah, it stepped up for him. So yeah, it's pretty amazing story. But anyway,
Dude,
that's
I actually just got encouraged right now because of that story again. I'm like, all right, I got a chance again.
See, that's why you got to have Kelly, man.
That's
Everybody
right.
needs a
That's
Kelly.
right.
No, anyway, it's good discussion. Good discussion about it.
Yeah, that's really all I got. Next time I want to talk about jealousy.
About
in the
jealousy?
Bible.
Okay.
And well, yeah, because I'm probably the most jealous person on the planet of every single thing. And then they have that in the Bible. God talks about jealousy, and I just think that you're going to make fun of me a lot, so I'm prepared for that.
I'm going to listen to some
I'm
gin.
gonna make fun of
I'm
you
going to
too.
listen to some gin blossoms.
Just Gin Blossom.
Yeah.
Hey, jealousy. Yeah. But Kelly, it's such an honor to have you on here, man. And his
Thank
new
you.
nickname's the Walrus.
Inviting me.
His new nickname's the Walrus, by the way.
All right. The walrus.
I'm not going to tell you why.
I'm the Eggman.
That's another session, Michael. That was an an inside joke with Tad and me about my recent.
All right. Well,
he just drove a U-Haul. He just drove a U-Haul 2,000 miles, and it had a big walrus on the side.
oh well.
The purple one.
Yeah, I'm not gonna live it now. Anyway.
No, you never, ever. All right. Well, I love you, Kelly.
Love you, Tad.
Kelly, thanks for being
I
on.
love you, Michael.
Tad, love you too. We will.
Michael, thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for being on and
Hey,
sitting around this table with me.
Yeah, one quick thing, just a little shout out for my friend. Today is the anniversary of his passing. So he my dear friend in Oklahoma City. So he's been heavy on my heart, heavy on a lot of people's hearts today, and we're gonna have a little joint memory of him today. But I just want him up in prayer. I've been thinking about him, and he's hearing us and looking down on us. So just my prayers for Al.
And I cannot believe what an ass I am for. I mean, we just talked about this yesterday, and for some reason, I thought it was Friday.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot believe that was a year ago.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
God, man. Yeah, I'm sorry, Kelly. Oh my God.
No.
It was our friend. It was our friend Ashley, Michael. That we.
Yeah.
About.
I know. We talked about him a couple times ago. Yeah. Well, thanks for bringing him up, bro.
But oh my God. Huh. You called me probably right at this time 1 year ago.
I did. Yep. Yeah. It was, and we were all interconnected. But anyway, just prayers for our brother Ashley, and blessings to both of you. And good discussion, Michael. Thank you. And Tad, thank you for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
All right.
Yeah. All right. I'll talk to you in a little bit.
Okay, guys. Thanks so much for joining us for this this new podcast that we have. I know that it's showing up in the traditional Credo House forums, the various places around you're getting it, but we are in the process of setting this up as its own podcast, Conversations with Tad, and we'll just keep you updated on what's going on with that. We really do appreciate you joining us and listening to this discipleship. It's new to us to do it live. So please bear with us as we try to do it live. And I mean, my main goal is, as I've told Tad, I said, I don't really care that much about, using this as something that we make public as much as I do care about keeping the discipleship going with you. It's very true. And if I felt like this hindered in any sense this true discipleship that's going on with Tad, if I felt like in any sense I wasn't being myself anymore, Tad wasn't being himself anymore, then I would say, well, it's really not worth it. It's not going in the right direction. So as long as we keep on doing this, as long as you keep on seeing it, at least I think it is going well. And I think we'll get better and better at least presenting in a way that benefits everybody. But we're always going to get the banter, me and Tad. I mean, otherwise it wouldn't be a real conversation. And like I said, we've been friends for too long. We've got too many stories, and we're going to have to throw them in here and there. But I do thank you very much for sticking around and listening to this. And we hope to catch you next time.